That's why I believe in you, because that is the greatest purpose. It's to love. Honest. It sounds corny, whatever you want to say. I don't care. I love people because there is freedom and power in loving people.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness, which creates and animates all things. Now, of course, understanding this powerful truth is one thing. Applying this incredibly empowering wisdom to everyday life, well, that's another, which is exactly why we provide you with a fresh serving of soul food for thought 5 days a week to help constantly remind you of what matters most. You are it. And I'm your host, Brandon Beecham. I'm the one who will be here with you each and every Wednesday, interviewing a different consciousness changemaker that is also out there working tirelessly to help catalyze change and expand awareness all across Spaceship Earth. On the other 4 weekdays, you can hear me discussing topics such as my favorite thought-provoking quotes, reading and discussing wisdom from empowering books, playing clips from various inspirational spiritual teachers, sharing a bit of mysterious news, taking questions from the audience, and essentially digging into any other mind-expansive topics that will help keep your soul fed by tuning you into positive vibrations on a consistent basis. And you guys have heard me say that if I ever run ads on the show, it will only be with a company that I fully support because I believe their intention is to make a positive difference in the world. Well, I'm pleased to announce that day has arrived and that this episode of the Positive Head Podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's interview episode, I am very excited to have Lillie Claire Love here with me on the show. Lillie is a Tantra teacher and life coach who believes self-love, compassion, acceptance, self-responsibility, and communication are the keys to joy, freedom, and peace. Hey there, Lillie. Welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, such a pleasure. Been looking forward to this for quite some time, and lots of good stuff, juicy stuff to talk about here. Before we dig in, I want to ask you the same question. I always start with the same question. You're in an elevator. You've got 10 floors to answer. The lady next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" What do you say?
My passion is helping people to feel and see and live from their core, and this core is really the essence of who they are, and the essence of who they really are is love. And love is acceptance. And love is this thing that doesn't judge, and it is held in peace, and that's really the core and the essence of who we all are. And then, we go through our life and we get all of these different wounds and scars, and we hold on to different things, and we develop our personalities and decide that's who we are. But when we kind of take all of that off, then we actually find that we're really simple and we're all really the same. And once we connect with that and live from that place and communicate from that place, our whole world can change, starting with how we relate to ourselves and our relationships, because our life really is just made up of relationships. So that's what I would say.
Absolutely. Great answer. I notice a theme, as I mentioned, I ask that question every time at the start of the show, and it's like, there's definitely a theme with everyone that I have on. It's like, how do we serve each other? How do we help each other heal? And it's funny. It makes me think of this funny little meme. I have, of course, we all have those friends who are always posting political stuff, especially, you know, in the lately with the political climate. And I normally stay out of it. And today I had to, it's one of my best friends from, you know, childhood. And so I had to start like just picking on him, messing with him a little bit. And which something you just said made me think of the meme that I'd posted in our thread. And it was, I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's like an alien looking down on Earth. And he's like talking into his mic in his UFO. And he's like, well, long story short, they forgot they're all brothers and sisters cohabitating the same planet, so they kind of became delusional and imagined invisible borders, beliefs and structures separating them, and started destroying each other and the Earth, instead of just living, sharing, creating, and evolving. So that's what it's about, right? Evolving.
Exactly. It's so simple, and we make it so difficult.
It really is. It really is. I always say, you know, one of my favorite quotes is, love is the answer, now what was the question, right? So
exactly.
So you have a pretty interesting story that led you to this place, and I'd love to get a little bit of, I know the listeners would love to hear a little bit about how you got to where you're at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I would say that kind of the short version of my story of how I got here is I came from a very disempowered place in myself. I mean, I had some pretty, tough experiences growing up, single mother, poverty, domestic violent relationship in the household. My mom was an alcoholic, sexual abuse, a bunch of not fun stuff. And I was very kind of shy, very insecure, and but very aware of myself and very aware of others and very sensitive. So I kind of like took on a lot, and I always I grew up it was a kind of like a hippie atheist home as well, and my parents. My mom had come from a very Catholic background and left that in the kind of like the 60s and 70s. She was a feminist, and she was marching in the protests, back in the 70s and early 80s even, in Australia I'm from. And but I basically just always knew that there was something more than what was, meets the eye. And I kind of dove into my own, spiritual seeking journey, that, like you said, what's the question, what am I here for? What am I doing? What does all of this mean? What is the purpose of, all of this pain and anger that I know around me and inside of me? And I first actually dove into Christianity, which to my parents and everybody I knew, to their dismay, they were just like, what happened? But honestly, even though I ended up leaving the church, and there were things that, about the religion that I didn't agree with, it gave me my first spiritual experience, where I experienced this presence, kind of what I was talking about earlier, of this love, this total acceptance. Because I was going to church for about a year, but never quite committing. Like I was leading these kind of double lives, actually. I was like at acting school, partying and doing drugs and having sex, and then I would go to church on Sunday and feel peace. And I got to this point where I went, no, it's just not for me. I just can't do it. It's just not me. And so I went to this one last church seminar with a friend, and I was kind of sitting up the back with my arms crossed, like, everyone is so fake happy here. And then the music started playing, and I just slowly found myself walking up into the center of the room, and then singing along to the music, and then putting my hands up in the sky, kind of in the surrendered, kind of praising way. And then I suddenly just felt this white light coming down through me, and it just felt so loving, so peaceful, and it was just saying to me, you are accepted and loved exactly as you are. You don't have to be or do anything for me to love you. And so from that point on, I was converted. I was a believer. And then from there, I
have a question. Did you look at this as, was this like a religious, when you say you were kind of converted, did it feel like it was a religious sort of experience, or, you know, sort of beyond that?
No, it was beyond. It was beyond. But the thing was, because I didn't have any other resource, I don't have any other context. Yeah, this was my only reference. So I thought, okay, I don't have to be or do anything else. You know, I don't have to quit drugs if I don't want to, or, you know, stop having sex outside of a marriage if I don't want to. But this is the only place kind of I know where to feel this and get this connection. Right. So I did. I committed to things, and actually it was good for me. You know, most of the things that I stopped doing and transformed. And I was in the church for about 3.5 years after that point. Then I left, and I left a marriage also, and I started opening up my mind again to other possibilities, because there was a lot there that was very fear-based. You know, if you even meditation, you know, was like, that's like the devil.
Right. How dare you close your eyes and look within.
And so I left. I started opening my mind to other things and started getting into energy work and different things. And I actually then started to have these experiences where I was communicating with what we know as ghosts or entities.
Oh, wow.
And then from there, then I moved to LA, and I started really committing to my personal kind of inner healing journey, and along that path found Tantra. And Tantra really is basically this path to total acceptance of all that is, of all paths of life. And we focus very much in the West, and we focus on the sexual piece of Tantra, the, you know, elongating the pleasure and the orgasm and relationship, you know, intimacy and things like that. And I believe that we focus on that piece in the West because we need it. We need healing in this area, but also sexuality is actually the root of our life. We came through two people having sex. This is how we actually exist. So sexual energy is creative energy. It's our life fuel. So it is the foundation of our life. And I believe that it's coming into the West now in such a big way, that because we need it, because we actually need to, as a community, as a culture, as a society, and as individuals, embrace this sexual piece. Because for so long it's been on the back burner, it's been taboo, it's been, you know, behind closed doors.
Right.
And that means that there's a part of us, a big part of our life, because we all know we do it, and that's how we all got here. That means that we're fragmented and it's not integrated if it's something we can't talk about. And if we see it still as like embarrassing or dirty or, you know, taboo, and the reason why, you know, we have so much objectification in the Western culture around sexuality, also because, you know, to see music videos with, you know, everyone's got no clothes on, we're all shaking our ass, and the porn industry is just, massive, and that's all tailored to, the man's, what the man gets out of it. No one's asking her, are you actually having fun here? Right. All of this is objectification, which comes from shame, which comes from, I can't be honest about how I feel about this. I can't talk about this with my family. I can't, let people know I'm having, low confidence in this area, or issues, or these kind of fantasies. We don't feel safe to talk about these things, and we don't feel safe to even, admit that we're turned on sometimes. And so then it's basically objectified, it's exploited, rather than integrated. So that was actually a kind of a long version of me and how I got here.
Well, that's a good version. It's quite the journey that you've had, and I know a lot of people, of course, are familiar with Tantra and the term and the idea loosely. It's like one of those things, I'm kind of familiar, but not a lot have really dug in and explored Tantra. And for me, I remember, going a few years back, the first time I was really introduced was by Osho. And there's a book, I don't know if you're familiar with, called The Book of Secrets. And basically what Osho says in that is Tantra means technique. Not concerned with the why of things, concerned with the how of things. And, and basically it's like 112 different, basically what it says, Book of Secrets is 112 keys to the mystery within, described in, Vigyan Bhairav Tantra. It's basically like Shiva and his consort Devi, or Devi, however you pronounce it, discussing sort of different techniques to achieve, enlightenment or some sort of ecstatic, blissful state. And only some of them were sexual related. And so for me, that was a big kind of surprise when I first was exposed to this book. Like, oh, okay, I didn't really, have a deep understanding, and I don't think a lot of people do, and I still don't claim to. Hence having you on the show. That's like my favorite thing to do. Okay, who knows a lot about something that I want to know more about, right? So really curious what your thoughts are on that. Would you agree with that? That it's more of like this technique, scientific sort of approach to achieving, greater awareness?
Yes, exactly. It is. Tantra means to weave as well. So it's like weaving together, which is, you've got to have technique to weave together all these different aspects of life. And it is a science. It's a practice, because there's all these different exercises or practices, tools in Tantra. Like yoga has so many different poses that you go into.
Right.
And these practices, these techniques, all are ways for you to get in touch with that source energy inside of you, that creative energy, and to move and kind of clear the blocks inside of your mind, body, and spirit. And ultimately that path is to lead you into enlightenment, which really for me means being remembering that I am a being of light. I come from light, and I return to light. I am light. I am love, and that is all inclusive. That is peaceful. That is loving and accepting. So it is a science, because basically you get to be the guinea pig in a way with these practices, and be your own kind of scientist or detective, and go, okay, so when I do this breath practice, I actually feel this in my body, and I start to get these results. So when I do this eye gazing practice with my partner, then I feel this, and I get that, and this happens in our relationship. So it actually is a science in that way, and a technique. And so it's not just a philosophy to live by, but it's actually something that you practice.
Yeah, he put it, he said it was it's like bringing electricity into your house. You can turn it on and off whenever you want. It can cool your room. It can heat your room. And I thought that was sort of an interesting way to put it. And he also had said, in the East, we've developed a science. If you cannot find a soulmate, you can create one. That's the science of Tantra. So he's saying, which I thought was really fascinating. It's like, yeah, you may find your soulmate, but it's like lightning. You can't depend on it. You don't know when it'll strike, but you can actually use this scientific approach. It's alchemy, right? And so I found that very interesting conceptually. And I guess what I'd love to hear from you is, why would someone want to practice Tantra in a relationship?
In a relationship, why someone would want to practice Tantra? Well, one, if you want to have a deeper, the crux of it is if you would want to have a deeper intimacy with another person. And intimacy being, we kind of break the word down into me I see, or into you I see, or you see into me.
That's beautiful.
So intimacy is not just sex, but intimacy is vulnerability. Intimacy is, I really know this person, and this person really knows me, and I really allow this person into my heart. They allow me into theirs, and together, we can create worlds together. We're partners on this mysterious journey. Together we get to really rely on each other, and encourage each other and support each other, and really awaken in a sense to what else is possible here, to our greater purpose, and to bring that into your sexual intimacy also just actually brings this sacredness to sexuality, to sensuality, to the intimacy that you can experience with another person. Because the thing about Tantra is it's all inclusive of everything. As I said, it's all about acceptance. So accepting all parts of life, which means accepting the death and the loss that is in life also. This birth, death, and rebirth process that we go through probably a million times in our lifespan. There's deaths of literal deaths of people and our own, and then also there's the death of jobs, or death of a certain kind of phase in our life, or a part of our personality. And so embracing all of that as sacred and basically as spiritual. And the wonderful thing as human beings, we get to experience through our senses, through our body of touch, taste, sound, sight. Being kind of an intuitive who is connected with the other realm, the realm of, the unseen. I know that it's a privilege to come here. It's a privilege to come to Earth. And the reason why, one of the big reasons why we want to come here as souls and spirits is to experience through our senses, and to experience this great love and relationship with another human being. And unless you go and, live in a cave, you cannot get away from relationship as a human being. Like that's
sort of like the driving force behind almost everything, right? The relationship between men and women.
Yeah, and to actually start to experience sexuality and intimacy, sexual intimacy, with all of the parts connected, with your heart connected to your sex center, with your, intuition, with your emotions, with all of it connected, can be such it is such a more profound and beautiful and enlightening experience than just the probably, normal kind of sex that most people are used to having, which is more just like a release from stress.
It's like a sneeze, I've heard it referred to. It's like a very basic sneeze at that level.
Yeah. It's like, okay, done. And with Tantra, it's all about expansion. So expanding the pleasure, expanding the moments of being so present with your partner, being present with your sensations in your body, and expanding the orgasm, is again expanding the amount of time that you're spending in that place of oneness with everything.
Right.
Because in that moment of orgasm, you've got no control whatsoever. You're completely surrendered, you're completely vulnerable, and you're really connected to Source, which, is that love and that peace and that acceptance and that memory of, oh, we're all in this together.
Right.
So,
right. So
that's why you would want to do it.
Yeah. Okay. I guess you've convinced me. So, is it something that can be practiced? I mean, is there any ability to practice Tantra as an individual? I mean, is it something that's always going to be relationship centered? No,
you can do it as an individual, and it has to start with you on your own anyway. I mean, even if you're in a relationship, you have to start it. And if your partner doesn't want to do it because they think it's weird, then, you've got the power to do it yourself. And I've had clients who, their partner, the husband was like, that's weird, I'm not doing that. And so she was practicing it, and then their sex life started to really improve. And he was like, what is going on? Like, he can feel it inside of her. He can feel this shift and, in her whole energy. And then, he was like, okay, I'm on board.
Synergistical. I've heard sex referred to as, SEX, synergistical energy exchange. Have you heard that?
Yeah. I love that. I haven't heard that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good, huh?
Yeah, I've heard sacred energy exchange. So
okay, yeah, very similar.
And so to practice on your own, basically the main practice of Tantra is breath.
Okay.
Breath work.
Interesting.
So basically, because breath again is life force, it's a fuel. If we don't have breath, we don't have life. And there's been all these studies that we breathe maybe like 10% or something of
what we
how
should.
Much actual capacity,
Right.
And we live in such a stressed out, go, do, achieve society that we're always in this constant state of constriction rather than expansion. And so when we're constricted, our breath is constricted, we're tight and tense, and the breathing is shallow. And so the more we learn to expand our breath, the more we're actually expanding the oxygen that gets to our organs and our lungs and our heart and our blood and our brain and all of that. So we're just going to be just operating at a more optimal, place with more oxygen. If when the body has 80% oxygen in it, then any disease will vanish. So it's pretty amazing. I mean, basically, a cancer patient could probably, and there are many that have and do, heal themselves through breath work, among other treatments. But because when the body's optimizing at that much oxygen, then there's no way that any dis-ease can survive, because you're in this state of harmony and vitality. And really, when you learn to expand your breath becomes this tool, the number one tool that you can rely on in any moment of fear, anxiety, stress.
Right.
You know,
you can't be upset if you're breathing deeply and slowly, right?
No,
it's like impossible.
Can't. It's impossible. And you come to this place inside of you where you're like, it's stillness and it's calm. And you're like, okay, I don't know. Maybe I don't know how it's all going to work out right now. But I know that it is when I'm in this place.
Right.
And when I'm in this place of stillness and peace and expansion, I'm actually open to the infinite possibilities that could actually be there that I couldn't see when I was in that place of constriction and stress.
Yeah.
And so there's many different breath practices. I mean, I could take us through one.
Are there any? Yeah, that'd be excellent. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay, awesome. All right, so you're just going to relax your body. Just hopefully you're sitting down, but if you're standing, that's fine. And just, if you can, close your eyes, or at least have them just gently kind of looking at the floor beneath you. And just start to feel your breath just naturally, how it's moving. Just notice your belly and your rib cage. And notice the breath moving in and out through the nostrils. And I want you to start to take a long, slow, deep breath, as deep as you can into the belly through your nostrils. And you're expanding the belly like a balloon. And as you do that, then you expand the rib cage and then release the breath. And a deep inhale, blowing the belly up like a balloon. And then notice how it wants to fill up into your lungs and expand into your heart center. And hold the breath at the top for a moment. And then slowly release the breath. And just be with the sensations in your body as you breathe in and breathe out. And you may not be able to take as long breath as I am, and that's fine. We're all at different capacities, but just imagine you're taking the first breath you've ever taken. It may even help you to open your mouth and take a big gulp of air. And a deep exhale. And on that exhale, just notice your body relaxing. Any places of tension, I want you to focus and breathe into that area of your body. And if you can hear the sound of my breath, you'll hear it kind of sounds like the ocean waves going in and going out. So I want you to now bring your fingertips to the pit of your throat. So we're going to bring all of our focus and attention to the throat. And you're going to create a little constriction in your throat so you can hear your breath like mine. So you're going to inhale here at the throat. And hold the breath. And then exhale. And release the jaw and inhale. The ocean waves coming in and releasing the ocean waves going out. And inhale one more time. And exhale. And we're going to go into another practice, which is alternative nostril breathing. So you're going to actually close one nostril with your thumb and breathe in the free nostril. And then hold the breath at the top. And then close the free nostril and open the opposite. And exhale out that. And breathe in that nostril. Hold the breath at the forehead. And exhale out the other one. So you're inhaling the free nostril, holding, and exhaling the other. One more round, inhaling the free. And exhaling out the other. So that one is actually really balancing for the right and the left hemispheres of your brain. So we in Tantra know the different aspects of the body and the being as feminine and masculine, and we all have that whether we're male or female. So the masculine is the right side of the body and the left side of the brain, which is our more logical, linear thinking brain. And then the feminine aspect is the left side of the body and then the right side of the brain, because at the nasal, that's where the passages cross to meet the brain. And the right feminine aspect of the brain is the more creative, non-linear aspect of us. And when they're working in perfect harmony, then that's when we can be creative and intuitive and spontaneous and open and flexible, and also be logical and analytical and focused.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are two little pieces of it.
Yeah,
I just want you to also notice like how your body feels after you've done that.
That's what I was about to say. Such a difference. I mean, even when we first got on, we had a few technical difficulties. I was sort of, I had a very amped sort of day, and then I allowed myself, as I joked about, to get, for the first time, get sucked into a little bit of a debate with a friend, and then came straight into this interview, and I was in this sort of heightened state, and I'm prone to sort of be that way anyway, right? I have lots of energy, and so it's amazing to me when I focus on breath and do a breathing exercise like that, how much bliss you can feel and how much it can help to ground you and calm you down. And it's such a, natural high. I mean, you hear about people using breath work and having like DMT type experiences. So you can totally see how. I haven't personally sort of went that far with it, but even just doing it now, it makes me want to explore breath work more. And it's a simple thing, once again, that's laying there that hardly anyone is utilizing, right? It's crazy.
And then, as you mentioned, there are cooling practices and heating practices. So there's that was much more of a cooling, calming, peaceful, balancing breaths that we did. And then there's more kind of
like
fiery.
Breath of fire.
Breath of fire, yeah. So then they're fiery and energizing, and they're detoxifying, and they're kind of like pumping up that creative energy from your sex center through your body, so that you have that energy and that fire to go out and create what you want to create in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Well, I have a question for Coach Lillie, okay? And this is something that I've personally experienced in my own sort of sexual journey, and that is having, someone that's been probably more sexual than the average person, had lots and lots of experience, over the years. And one of the things that's kind of bugged me about myself is, being this very loving person, very loving individual, I've always sort of, sex and love have been sort of exclusive for me. They haven't necessarily went together, and only in recent years have I started to sort of say, question that and wonder, is there something wrong? Why is it that, I can be very loving, be in love with someone, feel so much love in my life for myself, for others, but then for sex, I've had this experience of blockage, and only recently had any sort of experiences sort of breaking through that. So for me, and I wouldn't say it's some major great breakthrough either. So for me, it's like hearing about Tantra, and it's all about like cultivating this love, this love experience, and even, having read things about Tantra, of course, like even going as far as the being sort of merging and looking out of one partner, being able to sort of see out of the other partner's eyes. I don't know if you've heard of this sort of experience. It's just fascinating to me, and I'm fascinated by it, and it's so beautiful and makes all the sense in the world based off of everything that I know and believe. But yet for me, there's always sort of been this blockage, and I'm wondering if that's something that you encounter often, and what your thoughts are on that.
No, it's very common. Kind of what I was touching on earlier on basically integrating our sex, our sexuality, our desires with our heart and even our mind. So we're completely fragmented and disconnected as a culture, as a society. So everything is kind of like compartmentalized.
Right.
And honestly, it's gonna take a bit of work. It's taken me a lot of work, and I continue to connect my heart with my sex center, and my sex center with my heart, and for them to actually be communicating, because most of us, even if we haven't had kind of sexual abuse or sexual trauma, we all have this belief system which is a trauma in our society of this disconnection between these centers, and whether it was through religion, or being just not having, you weren't able to like talk about it in your family, or it was seen as dirty or whatever. There's this notion there, and that's pretty deep in us collectively. And so just even for women, for men too, but I can speak from a woman's perspective, that it's been very unsafe for us to reside in our heart and our sexuality together. We ended up kind of having to take on what we think is like a man's perspective, but I know that's that's warped as well, because it's just been shaped from society and wounds and war and everything. But we kind of took on this like I can do anything like a man. I can go out and be a businesswoman. I can be a mother. I can fuck like a man. And then there's this disconnection, because it's very vulnerable for all of us to actually reside connected with our heart and our sex center, because we can be hurt, we can be shamed. So you're not alone in that. And it just means, if that's something that you want to experience, all of those amazing things that we talked about, and even just experiencing like that kind of like deep connection when you're in lovemaking with somebody, with your partner, and experience that as kind of as sacred, that you first make that commitment. This is what I want to experience. This is what I want to work towards. And the breath practices are really powerful, and so you could do that kind of ocean breathing that we were doing, breathing into your sex center, and then breathing, kind of imagining like it's water or movement up into your heart center, and then breathing into your heart center, and then breathing that air down into your sex center. So you're basically starting to create this bridge between these two places in your body. And that alone, it sounds pretty simple, but that alone is just starting to create a relationship and a communication between your sex and your heart, and to let your heart kind of speak down to your sex center and say, it's safe for you to surrender. It's safe for you to receive this love. It's safe for you to feel. It's safe for you to open, and for your sex center to again speak to your heart also, and say, I want to connect with you. I want to feel more. I want to feel my partner more. I want to listen deeper to what I need and what my partner needs. But yeah, it's a practice that I feel that many of us could use and would be really healing as a society if we were all to make that, even just first make that commitment, like, okay, that's something I want to experience, I want to heal, and you've just got to be patient with it though. Don't expect it to happen overnight. Just keep little by little coming back to that commitment and doing those little practices. And there's, obviously, if we were working together, I could dive in a lot deeper with you, but that's basically, what we could all use.
I think you touched on the key thing is first making the commitment. This is something that I intend to do, that I'm going down this road, and then of course, as you've touched on early on, it's all about accepting where you're at, and not, because it's so easy to feel like like I mentioned, like, is there something wrong with me? Like, why am I this way? And other people are that way, and that seems more loving and more evolved, and all these things, and it's so I think it's you got to be very careful with that, because then it turns into like shame or self-judgment.
Exactly. And the other thing I would say is just give yourself permission to slow down. So when you're actually in the moment of sex, then recognize and notice. I mean, obviously, things build up and we get excited, and the pace and everything gets built up. But if you could remind yourself to just slow down, and maybe even if you have to stop for a moment and breathe in sex. And that's one thing that we really don't do, that we're not breathing in sex, and especially when we start to come towards orgasm, we want to constrict because we want to hold on to it, because we want to feel that release. But the more you actually breathe and slow things down, at first you might actually lose your orgasm, and that's okay. And but it becomes this practice of lengthening and elongating the moment and the experience. And the more that you do that, you'll actually start to be able to be more with your own experience, with your own sensations and your partners, and with your orgasm, but in a much more present, expanded way. And I think that will really shift things for you also. Anybody in the audience is listening. Try that. Breathe in sex. Remember to breathe in sex.
Right. I read something not too long ago, and it said you can never go too slow. I think it was even talking from a woman's perspective. Like, it was saying just that, like, guys, slow down. Like, it's not about trying to rush to some finish line, I think a lot of times that's what happens with people. It's like you sort of this nervous energy gets built up, and it's like, okay, there's like a task at hand, and of course guys are so task oriented and like goal oriented, and it's like, just chill out and relax and follow the energy and let it, don't be trying to get anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, because our society is so, stress based. Then pleasure becomes just a release rather than this beautiful experience. Right. And that pleasure energy is creative and sensual and uplifting and nurturing, which is all qualities of the feminine energy. And, there's this whole kind of goddess movement happening, the divine feminine, and it might look to some people like, whatever, what is that? But it's this real thing of needing more of this nurturing energy in all of our lives, rather than just going from stress release. You know, if either our release is sex or the pokies or drinking or whatever it is, you know, instead of just going stress release as a society, you know, forever, we need to move on to the next level of evolution, which is moving up from just release and into actual the presence of the moment, the presence of being here and enjoying our senses, and moving into the heart where we're connecting with ourselves and each other in this other realm. Because what's going on, you know, politically and all of that is, it's not going to shift from this place of fighting, which we've always done, we've always known. We actually have to move into something higher.
I agree. All right, well, now seems like a good moment to take a quick minute to tell those of you who aren't familiar a bit about our sponsor, Gaia. I've been a big fan of Gaia for many years now, which is why they're the only content provider I've ever reached out to in regards to potentially supporting the Positive Head podcast. So needless to say, I'm very excited they're now supporting the show. Gaia truly is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web. They have an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. Just to give you an example, on May 1st on the show Wisdom Teachings, host David Wilcock explores the scientific proof of ascension, DNA activation, and how interplanetary climate change is made possible with nested spheres of energy emanating from the galaxy. I mean, it'd be pretty hard to be more up my alley, right? As you guys all constantly hear me say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to go deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. You said something that it was interesting. You know, you talked about it being creative, and then I'm sure you've heard of sort of some of these ideas of, or, you know, monks that are abstinent. And, you know, what do you think about that? I mean, is there any truth to the idea that being abstinent and not having an orgasm can sort of create energy, creative energy in your life? So essentially by, abstaining from sex, you can become more creative and use that energy in a different direction.
Yeah, for sure. It's so basically, orgasm is this release of energy, and it's this creative energy build up, and then this release. And so, by abstaining, or at least kind of having a practice of elongating your the time before you orgasm. You're actually building up and cultivating your creative energy, your chi, and so you may choose if there's something that you really want to do in the world that's feels like it takes a lot of energy and a lot of focus and a lot of power, then that may be a practice that you might want to try. It doesn't have to be forever. You don't have to become a monk, but you can have this practice of cultivating your sexual energy, your creative energy, and kind of you're like putting it in your bank house, and then kind of with intention and focus, you're directing this creative, powerful energy into whatever it is that you want to accomplish. And that can go for many different things. That could be a business venture. That could be, wanting to create a baby. That could be wanting to attract your soulmate. But it's basically you're cultivating this energy of creation, and then putting your intention for where that's going to go and directing that in your life. And I would say that, ask yourself the question, am I prone to being hyper or hypo sexual? So do I use sex as this release, and I kind of just like, do it a lot and get it over with and get it out, or am I much more of a, don't really open up in that way and don't have a lot of sex or don't orgasm, and then maybe set an intention that you're gonna maybe try going the other way, so to get a little bit more balance. That doesn't mean if you have a lot of sex you have to abstain, but maybe you'll practice that elongating the orgasm, so breathing and stopping and slowing down. And if you're more of a person who has trouble having orgasms or just doesn't have sex because you don't want to deal with the relating to another human in that way or whatever, getting hurt,
all the things that come with it, right?
Yeah, all the things. Then make an intention that you might open up, and maybe that will just start with more self-love, more central tantric breathing masturbation, as a form of opening yourself up in that place, in that arena.
Right. Interesting. So this is maybe a slight deviation. Not really. I mean, it's in the same neighborhood. But I'm curious. I'm just curious what your opinion is. Someone who sort of is so specialized in understanding Tantra and practicing Tantra. What are your thoughts on? Of course, I'm sure you're aware. There's a lot of people that seem to be opening up more towards ideas of polyamory or non-traditional pair bonding, and people like Christopher Ryan. I don't know if you're familiar with the book Sex at Dawn. They actually shared a clip from him on a TED Talk recently, because it's something that I personally, when you sort of look at the science of it all, it's as he says, we're not like apes, we are. We are not like monkeys, we are monkeys. We're more like a bonobo chimp than an Eastern elephant is to a Western elephant, and they don't have monogamous pair bonding. And how does all of that play into it? And I'm just in general curious what your thoughts are about that whole subject.
I love that book, and I think that information is really useful. And
so you've read that book?
I have, yeah. And
okay.
I can't remember what the other one was, but I believe. I feel like it's definitely, the monogamy thing, and marriage to one person, that came out of, survival. Like, we've got to, pair together, and, but we came from tribes. So I feel like that's probably our natural state. And then at the same time, because we exist in a time right now that we want this intimacy and this connection, but we're also just still terrified of it. It's terrifying. I feel like it can also be a distraction from that, and just I know as a person who practices Tantra and teaches that sexual energy is really powerful, and we've got to have reverence for it. And so if we have not been able to really cultivate vulnerability and intimacy and presence with ourselves and with one other person in this arena, and then we're opening up that energy, that really powerful energy, to a bunch of other people. And I know that I have many friends, and went through polyamory myself for a while. There's a lot of really loving relationships, and a lot of communication, and it's healthy, but also just to be aware that energy is being spread around, it's being kind of spread thin, that creative energy, if you go back to that. So in that regard, how can you really become very intimate when it's being so, spread around? Or how can you really become really focused in whatever it is you want to create in this world when that's being spread around? So those are the two kind of things that come up for me, but I definitely don't think it's wrong, and each to their own, and maybe something for everyone to, at least explore the conversation around.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a very viable point. It's like, hey, it's kind of like spreading yourself too thin, and or it certainly could be. It's certainly more prone to that sort of experience happening when you maybe are in an open relationship versus a traditional, monogamous style relationship, which is sort of rules the day on our planet currently, right? But and I think it is. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wonder if it's just another distraction from intimacy, from really being like seen with one person.
Well, and I think we all have that. I don't care, you can be open-minded, you can, be open to open relationships, have open relationships, whatever. But I think we all long for that sort of the one kind of thing, or that special connection, right? I think that seems to be something that is in all of us. But at the same time, I also feel very, it's almost a confusing matter for a lot of people, because you see a lot of course, monogamous relationships. Then it starts off burning so brightly, and the fire is, you're that honeymoon phase, as they call it, right? And then it seems like it kind of fizzles after a while. And sort of my theory or perspective on that is like, once you're boxing something in, once you're, you put a label on it and you put it in a box and you cut it off all other options and what have you, then it sort of doesn't seem to, at least in my experience, I haven't had it where it lasted. I mean, but I think we all have that sort of dream of that special relationship, and I think it's in all of us.
But I feel like that is actually the point where that's where like the work kind of comes in.
Right.
And, we've been fed so many fantasies, so many romantic movies.
Totally.
The movie ends basically when they get together. The whole movie is about
that's right before they start hating each other.
But actually that's when the real stuff can happen. And for me, I mean, I definitely didn't come from this place. Whenever there was conflict, I was like, nah, I'm out of here. Like, I'm done. But for me to actually, my learning has been that is the place that I actually get to learn what my values really are, what I really stand for, what I'm really committed to, and that's for me where like real romance is. It's not in like just everything's always amazing and I only see like all of the good parts of you and all of that. For me real romance is we like work through the crap, and we we learn to accept the different parts of each other that aggravate us, but also teach us something. And and back to Tantra as a technique, it's a how. So there are things that we can do to bring back the fire, and but that fire doesn't. It deepens the connection. So I feel like, I don't know, we live in a society that's very much quick fix, and we just want everything to work, and
change the channel. There's a million other channels if you're bored with this one.
Just swipe. I don't know. I've never done
right. Swipe left or swipe right.
Yeah, but if we could actually step deeper into practicing something, trying something new with this person, we might actually grow in our affection and our love for them. And the other part of monogamy, of what hasn't worked for so long, is that that idea that we should only be attracted to that one person forever. It's like, well, that's not going to happen.
Right.
But we need to be able to talk about this. And so why, so many, people, it doesn't work in monogamy so many times, and there's affairs and you're cheated on and betrayal and blah, is like, people don't feel like that they can be honest about it. Like, either the woman or the man or both are like overly insecure.
That's my biggest problem. That's my biggest problem with monogamy, is that it's such a common thing. People feel shamed, like, what's wrong with me? And when you look at someone like Christopher Ryan's work in that book, it's like, hey, actually, this is how we're wired. If you look at our relatives that we're almost identical to, this is how they operate, and so I think as we sort of evolve spiritually, that seems to be, and you're less intimidated or threatened your ego by others outside, it's like unconditional love, I want for you what you want for you, right? That's like, seems like such an incredibly beautiful way to...
Exactly, and it doesn't mean we have to go off and do other things. If we've got to know where our boundaries are and agree on that. But
of course,
if we can't even talk about that in a relationship, if we can't even be honest, that there's a crush or an attraction or whatever, then there is no intimacy.
Totally.
We don't really know each other. We don't really have space for each other to be. I have a kind of funny, embarrassing story about jealousy, actually. A couple of years ago, I'm married now, but when we were just dating, my partner and I, the first year of our relationship, I was really jealous, and I don't feel like I had really ever experienced that much before in my relationships. And we were hanging out one day, and he had this crystal that he, a rock crystal that he loved, and he was kind of like hugging it, and he was being silly, and he called the crystal, so she was a girl, and
of course,
and he was being silly, and he was holding her and hugging her and kissing her, and he was like, Crystal loves me so much. And then just out of nowhere, I went, hey, at the crystal. His jealous girlfriend.
So
I'm
good.
like, hey. And then he goes, why are you being mean to something? Why are you talking like that to something that loves me? And then I just overcame with this, the shame, and I started crying, and I was like, I don't want to deal with jealousy. And it was like, what? And I actually had this experience in that moment. I was taken back to being really young, like I was, I think I was about 4.5, almost 5, and my dad had an affair while my mom was away, and he was taking care of me. And so for a week or something, we were hanging out with this other woman.
Oh, wow.
And basically, as a child, I interpreted that and then basically my mom came back, and they had a huge fight, and they broke up, and they separated. But I basically internalized that to mean that I couldn't hold my dad's attention, that there was something wrong with me that caused him to have to go out and have another woman. And so basically there was this belief, what if I can't hold your attention? What if I'm not enough?
Right.
You're going to leave me, and then that's abandonment. So I was able to really clearly see where that jealousy and that insecurity came from, and make peace with it. And I was able to see from this different perspective of an adult that it had nothing to do with me, and my dad didn't love me any less, and he had his own stuff, and my parents had their own stuff, and so from that I was able now, and through my relationship, anytime I feel that kind of insecurity or that jealousy come up, I just breathe and I just remember, and I just let myself know I'm enough, I'm safe, I'm loved, I'm not going to be abandoned. And really, at the end of the day, I feel like everybody should know if they leave or they cheat or they whatever, it doesn't have anything to do with you.
It's never personal. Huh.
Yeah, it's not, but we need to be able to talk about that stuff so that we can move through it together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I hope that you attract a woman who is able to hear that and hold that for you.
Yeah, that's the thing I would say is we're always going to attract something that's a vibrational match on some level, and it's always happening for us. And there's always something to learn. And I think one big misconception that's out there is, for a lot of people, it's this idea, like we talked about, kind of the fairy tale, happily ever after, that something has to last forever for it to be successful. And for me, I've had, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 what I would call serious relationships in my life. And, all of them I learned from and have grown from and have led me to the next sort of greatest and greatest version of myself. And I think that's one big misconception that I think people have is like, oh my gosh, I'm a failure, I'm not enough, or those sorts of things can come up for people, and I don't see it that way at all. It's like it's you can last a week and it was a raging success if you got what you're supposed to get from it.
What did we learn from each other? And a real success could be, if we could walk away from this and go, okay, what did we learn from this? And a thank you to being some kind of teacher in my life.
Yeah, I like to say a thank you is always in order when you fully understand what's going on here. It's like it's always happening for you at some level. And when we can start looking at all of it, everything, not just relationship, through that lens, it sort of is a big turning point, I believe. So, Well, you'd mentioned your intuitive gifts and communicating with spirits and those kinds of things. The little boy in me loves hearing stories of paranormal, something positive paranormal, or a story of synchronicity or something like that. Do you have something good to share?
I do. God, I have so many, but I can give you some kind of like I have some that are about ghosts, I guess, about entities. Okay. So my mother passed away 5 years ago. And the last conversation we had was a healing conversation. So I had started doing this energy work, and I was doing this work with her on a call, and gave her basically permission to give herself permission to choose whatever was kind for her, because she was sick and in pain for a long time. So we basically got to it, and I said, I can't speak for anybody else, but I give you, permission to choose whatever would be most kind for you. And then about a week later, she went into a coma, and I was communicating with her as she was in her coma, and she wanted me to speak to her partner. And so I called him, and he just got back from the hospital, and he said, he was crying, didn't know if she was going to make it. And I told him about our conversation and what I told to her, and he said I wouldn't judge her either, even if she chose to leave this life. And then within about 2 minutes, the phone rang, and she just passed away.
Wow.
So we gave her permission, and she gave herself permission.
Beautiful.
And yeah, I had another experience with my ex-boyfriend passed away. I wasn't with him at the time, and I mean, we weren't dating at the time, but he was missing for about a week, and his family was looking for him, and I got in contact with his energy, and he had passed on, and so I explained, to him that he could release himself from, kind of where he felt like he was kind of trapped, and he could move towards the light. And then he did that. I felt him do that, and then his mom messaged me within a couple of minutes and said, "This is really hard, but we're gonna call off the search. We're gonna let him go."
Wow.
So yeah, I've had a lot of experiences like that, helping people kind of transition, and it's really beautiful because again, in Tantra, it's the acceptance of all of it. So this is, that we come through birth and through sexuality, and this is creation, and then this also includes, death and letting go and loss, and I think also is a big reason why we're so afraid to dive deep into love and intimacy, because we all know that we also have to let people go, but when we do, it's really powerful and peaceful, and really a wonderful gift that we can give each other.
Right. And would you agree that letting anyone go too, it's only a temporary, it's like a vacation from one another, right?
Yeah,
because we're all connected, and it's just a matter of time, right? Or no time until you are connecting again and experiencing one another again, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we still are connected with them. It's just not physical for us.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this has been absolutely fascinating, Lillie. I really, really appreciate you coming on the show here. You truly are a lovely Lillie Claire, so thank you so much. What is the best way for people? Yeah, absolutely. What is the best way for people to connect who would like to, follow you, maybe get in touch for any coaching or, any of the work that you're doing?
Yeah, LillieClaireLove.com, so it's LILLIE, Claire is CLAIRE, love, LOVE.com is the best place. You can email me from there. I've got some free content there. It's definitely much more geared to women, but and men can contact as well. And on all the social media platforms like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook are the main ones. Lillie Claire Love as well. Yeah, and for women, I would just also want to say that there's a lot of more powerful practices, yoni egg practices, and I have a free ebook that women can find on my website for yoni egg practice if they want to find out more about what that is.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard of this. Obviously, not something that I've practiced, so I probably won't be signing up. But I bet you there's a lot of listeners that will be interested to learn more, and you'll hear from them. And I would like to leave you with one final question. I always open with the same question, end with the same question. 60 seconds or less. What is the meaning of life according to Lillie Claire Love?
What is the meaning of life, according to me? To experience, to learn to just love and come into acceptance, to learn that there are no borders, that we're all connected and we all impact each other, and that we are all infinite, we are all eternal, so there's really nothing that we have to hold on to in this lifetime, whether that's trying to accumulate so much money or whatever it is. We have everything that we need inside of us, and so just allow yourself to experience and be in joy and be in gratitude and be in connection with yourself and with others. No shame. Give yourself permission to enjoy this one beautiful life that you have.
Lovely. Lillie, thank you so much. Such a pleasure and honor.
Thanks, Brandon. Thanks, everybody.
Well, everyone, that concludes this week's interview episode. If you have enjoyed this positive download from our hearts and minds to yours, please take a minute, give us a rating or review on iTunes, since iTunes is the holy grail of all things podcasting. Your good reviews help us to reach more listeners. Also, we would be extremely appreciative if you would tell your friends and family about the show. Our sincere intent with the Positive Head podcast is to spread positivity to the world because we're selfish, quite honestly. I say that jokingly, but really only halfway joking. I'm referring to the good kind of selfish based on the knowing that we all get what we give in this life, because when we give, we're actually always giving to extensions of self, since we're all really one in the same consciousness, just in different bodies. So if you want to be a good selfish along with us by helping to spread the positivity, by all means, please proceed to shout about the Positive Head podcast from your rooftop. Otherwise, as you continue on your fabulous journey in this 3D reality, be sure to remember this. As long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Journey well, everyone, and thank you for being.